and welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we are so excited to be introducing our brand new die, Outside In Stitched Acorn. We are also going to be introducing our stitched acorn frame, and both of these dies work well on their own, but they also work really great together to help you create really cute shakers, and we'll show you that in just a little bit. We're also going to be introducing our leaf and acorn border die, and also our fall mice stamp set with its coordinating dies and coordinating coloring stencils. And we're also going to be introducing the brand new Scripty Thanks outline add-on. Scripty Thanks is an older die, and now we have this awesome outline add-on base for it, and we'll show you how that works in just a bit. This is the leaf and acorn border. It has a really cute leaf border, some individual leaves, and these cute little acorns, both hanging in different directions with the little toppers that you can layer onto them. And so all you need to do is add a little liquid glue, and then you can layer the little tops onto the acorns, and they look so super cute. I think these are adorable. I love that the acorns are separate from the die so that you can use them with the leaf border or without, and you can use the leaf border with the acorns or without. Those extra leaves that the die comes with layer perfectly on top of the border so that you can do alternating colors or different shades of green or brown, etc. Or you can also use those leaves separately and tuck them into the border to create more leaves all around. And then you can take those cute little acorns and tuck them behind the border too. And I think this is such a fun look. One of the other really great things about this die is that those little acorns were sized perfectly to work with our All the Smiles stamp set. And what this stamp set is it's all the smiles in all these different sizes. And both the very smallest smiley faces and also the next smallest fit onto these acorns. So here is the kind of second to smallest smiley faces onto the acorns. And then I'm going to do one of the smallest ones on there. And I think this is such a fun look. I love that it just makes them really cute and silly, so it can be a little bit more elegant or a little bit more cute and fun depending on if you add these smiley faces or not. And then of course you can tuck them under the border too. And here is a card that I made that uses the Simply Celebrate squirrels and also our Lift the Flap tree backdrop, and then I layered all of the cute leaves and then these little smiley acorns all around. I also used the extra leaves to tuck into the trees, which I think is really fun, and I layered 2 leaf borders to make it look really full and beautiful at the bottom. This is our stitched acorn frame, which of course has the acorn frame, then this little backer for behind those details, a leaf, a stem, and these cute little tiny individual acorns that are really fun to add in this if you create a shaker. And so all you need to do is add a little bit of adhesive to the back of this piece here, and then you can layer this background there, and that's going to add the color to the details at the top of the acorn. And I love using different shades of brown here. I think that just looks so pretty. And then we also have these cute little tiny acorns and the little toppers for those. I always call them acorn hats. I think they look like little hats. And so we're going to layer those on as well. And then there's a little stem, and you'll see at the top of the acorn there's actually a little die cut little piece right there. It's like a little opening, and so I'm going to use the pokey tool here to just create an opening there and then just tuck the stem in, and then you can tuck the leaf behind that. And I think this is such a cute look. And then these little acorns could be used to decorate, or they could be used to fill this if you created a shaker with it. Now here is the outside in stitched acorn, and you'll see what it does is it creates an outside frame that's stitched with stitching and an inside acorn. We of course have the acorn top, smiley faces, a little backer for the smiley faces, and a leaf and a stem. And so there you can see what it looks like where there's a stitched acorn and also a stitched acorn opening. And I love that the die creates both with one pass through the die cut machine. We have these cute little smiley faces that you can add or not to your acorns. And then we have 2 different styles. So there you can see one of the styles, and then here we've die cut another one of those outside in stitched acorns, and then we're going to run the other smiley face with that. And I think those are so fun. And there you can see it where it's a little bit more plain. And then here we have the little top of the acorn, and this is a little bit of a different style than the frame one that has kind of the layers behind it. I love the stitching around it and also those like little die cut lines. I think it's so pretty. And so we're going to add little acorn toppers to all of the different acorns, whether it's plain or with a smiley face. And then for the smiley face ones, we have this little oval shape. That's the backer for the eyes and the mouth to add detail to those. And you can see what those look like there. And then of course we have little stems for these. And just like on the stitched acorn frame, there is a die cut opening at the top. You can add a little drop of liquid glue and then you can take your acorn stem and it'll fit right in there, which is really nice because it really makes it look like it's a part of the acorn, which is just adorable. And then of course we're going to add it to the rest of them. And then we have the fun little leaf, which I think adds a nice pop of color and just looks so pretty on these different acorns. You can see how it could look on any of the styles, whether it's smiley face or not. And then we also have those cute little rosy cheeks, which I think look absolutely adorable around these smiley faces. Now, what's really cool about the stitched acorn frame and this outside in stitched acorn is that the frame one fits inside of the outside in stitched opening. So you can really mix and match these together in a really cool way. You can then also use the outside in one to create the base for your shaker. So here is what the outside in one looks like. It creates all that. And then there is the frame one. Again, they can be used on their own or you can layer them together. And here you can see how the outside in one die cuts that acorn and it's the same size as the frame, so you can use it as the base for your shaker, which I think is really, really, really cute. One of the other things that I really love doing with the outside in stitched acorn is creating acorn shaped cards. So here I created a fun little card base that was the shape of the acorn and then layered all the details on top, and I think this is the cutest little mini card. So we have been coming out with outline shapes for our previous Scripty words, and now we have the Scripty Thanks outline add-on. Scripty Thanks is an oldie but a goodie die that I use all the time, and so I've die cut that out of white cardstock. Here you can see on the outline add-on there are some embossed lines there that are a great guide for where to layer on the Scripty Thanks, and you'll see this gives it a bold background. It's a fun place to bring in things like pattern paper or sparkle cardstocks and makes it really easy to pop onto your card. Now this is the fall mice stamp set, and this has our cute little yay mouse. That's what I call the mouse with his arms in the air wearing that adorable sweater. We have a mouse holding a pumpkin and a mouse with a leaf on its head. And then we have all of these different styles of leaves, which I love layering behind the mice or around the mice, but I also just love using these leaves on other fall cards too, not necessarily fall mice cards, just because they're such great leaves for any fun fall or Halloween projects. Then we have all of these tiny little phrases. So we have yay, of course, to go along with the yay mouse. We have fall is here. Can you believe it? And then hello, gorgeous. Then we have happy fall. I love these tiny phrases. And then we have these mix and match larger sentiments. So we have autumn greetings. And then we also have fall greetings. So you could choose either fall or autumn to put together with that. And then we also have another phrase where you can use the fall and then you can stamp into autumn. And I think these are all just fun, cute, adorable phrases. Now it's time to add some color to these adorable images. And of course, you can use your markers, your colored pencils, your watercolors, and coloring stencils too, which is a really fun way to add color to these cute guys. Now here I'm going to blend them out dark, medium, light like I always do, but I'm going to go back to my darkest marker and just add the thinnest little line right around those outside edges, and I think it just really makes the mouse pop. So I'll do it again, dark, medium, light, and then I'm going to go back to that darkest marker, and where I had originally laid that dark marker, I'm just adding a little bit, just a thin line, not blending it out, and I feel like it really makes the mice really pop. We're going to add some rosy cheeks to these guys and then some pink into their ears and bellies. And then I'm going to color in this cute little sweater. I wish I had this sweater. It's so cute. And I'm going to use some yellows. And while I have those yellows out, I'm also going to add some yellows to the leaves too. I like to do this so that everything is really going to coordinate together nicely. So I used orange on the leaf and the sweater. Now I'm going to use the same oranges on the pumpkin and the same oranges on some of the leaves. And I think it just makes everything look super cohesive. We're going to add some bright green to the leaf on both the pumpkin and also the leaf on the mouse's head, and then some of those extra little leaves there too. And then with that brown marker, I'm going to go over the green just a little bit, not the whole thing, just a little bit on there to really make it look like a fall leaf and not like a bright spring leaf. And then we'll add some brown and then some red to the other leaves just to have those gorgeous fall colors. Now it's time to check out the coloring stencils. You'll see here this is a set of 2 stencils and they're sized to be the size of the stamp set so that they're really easy to store together. They also have these great etch guidelines that make them really easy to line up with your stamped images. So I stamped out the cute little mouse that's holding the pumpkin. I'm just going to layer over my stencil and I'm bringing on some sugar cookie ink here, and then I'm going to bring in pizza crust just to add a little bit on the outside edges just to make him just a little bit darker. I thought the sugar cookie was a bit too light for a fall mouse, so I brought in that darker color and it's giving it that beautiful shading. Then I'm going to bring some pink in for the nose and the ear, and then we can again work our way down the stencil. Now here I decided to add more dark brown onto the mouse. So I love that you can go back to your stencil if it's like, oh, he's too light, just layer the stencil over again and add a little bit more color. Now here we're going to do the pumpkin here, which I think looks so gorgeous, and then we'll work our way down the stencil. And there's something I love about just moving my way down the stencil and filling in all these images. It's so much fun. It's so easy to do, and it gives it this soft, really gorgeous look. Like, look at this mouse. I love the shading on it. It's just gorgeous. Now next up we have the coordinating dies, which are already separated, so we just need to take them and line them up with our stamped images. Then we can hold it in place with some low tack tape and we'll run it through our die cut machine, and then we'll have perfectly cut out images every time. And here are all of the cute images from the set. I'm just in love with these guys. They are so adorable and they are so much fun to use on their own or mix and match together. This guy with his arms up in the air looks like he's maybe throwing leaves up into the air, and I think that's a really cute look. Or you can also layer the leaves around the little mice to create kind of like a fun little scene. And of course you can use them on their own or mix and match them together. And there's something about when you add all those little leaves that I think is so cute, or the leaves are falling down and then now they've fallen on top of his head. I just think it's so fun. Now here I'm going to take my white gel pen and I'm going to add little lines all around. I like adding little dots on their little rosy cheeks, and then I just add little lines. So just one little line and a dot on each one of the leaves, and then all around the curves of the mouse and the curves of the pumpkin. And I think it just looks so cute. Now it's time to make a card, and we're going to take out the spooky forest backdrop, and I've gone ahead and die cut that out of some woodgrain cardstock, which has that gorgeous woodgrain texture. And then we're also going to be taking our stitched hillside backdrop there, which I love this backdrop, and these two layer together in the most gorgeous way. Now I decided I didn't really want those little like grassy parts there going into my scene, and that's really easy. I can just take my scissors and just trim off any of the excess there, and then you'll see when we layer it over top, it looks so pretty. Now I die cut that backdrop out of some algae cardstock, but I wanted it to feel a little bit more fall-ish. So I'm going to bring in some artichoke ink, which is just a little bit darker and more kind of olivey. And I'm just going to brush a little bit onto the edges. You'll see I used a piece of scratch paper there to protect the other hill. And I'm just bringing in some of that ink there. And now it's looking just a little bit more like fall. Then once I've added enough ink onto this piece, I can take this little scrap of cardstock and then I'm going to tuck it in the other hill so I can protect the bottom of the other one. That way each hill has shading at the top, but not towards the bottom, which I think is going to look really pretty. And so we're just going to build up that artichoke ink just at the top, and then you can see how gorgeous that looks and how it's going to feel a little bit more like fall for my card. Now I'm going to add some Luca glue to the back of the spooky forest backdrop. I love this backdrop because it's the spooky forest, but I use it all year round. Fall, spring, summer. It's just so cute. And I just love this whole little scene right here. And then now we are going to be taking out that fall mice stamp set and we're going to layer them into this scene. And this is just so much fun. I just love it. So we're going to add this little yay mice here at the bottom, and then we're going to add the one with the pumpkin there towards the top. And then I'm going to tuck some of these leaves not only around the mice, but I'm also going to add them into the branches as well of the spooky forest backdrop to make those feel like there are still a few leaves left on those branches. Next, I needed a sentiment, so I'm going to take out my stitched banners here, and I'm going to die cut this from some speckled eggshell cardstock, which has this beautiful kind of off-white color and then these little speckles on it, which is so nice. And then we're going to be stamping out the autumn greetings phrase from the Fall Mice stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that out in some dough ink because I felt like it would really blend into the tree branches to have the nice brown sentiment versus using some black licorice ink. And then I'm just going to trim off one of the ends of the banner, and we're going to layer that into the scene. And then I'm also going to just layer one more little leaf behind there too. Now I want this to be a shaker. So this whole panel is going to be kind of be the front of my shaker, and I need to make this into a shaker window. And so I'm going to use some nice strong 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch tape here, and I'm going to layer that all around the backdrop, and then I can peel up the liner paper, and I'm going to add a piece of acetate that I've cut to be 5.5 by 4 1/4 inches, which is the size of the backdrops, and that's going to create this really cool shaker window that's going to be ready for a fun shaker scene, because I want to use the new Tiny Treasure fall leaves so that it looks like that one mouse is throwing leaves up into the air. So now I need to work on the base for this shaker. So here I have my stitched windy backdrop, which I wanted the wind to kind of go horizontal. And so I went ahead and die cut this from some mist cardstock. And I have a card base here that's 5.5 by 4 1/4. And I'm just going to layer this piece on top. So I'm just going to trim this down to be 4 1/4 inches wide, because the bottom part of my backdrop is going to cover up any of the white cardstock at the bottom. So it's totally going to work. So we're going to add some adhesive to this piece and then just layer that on to the card base. And at this point I brought in my shaker window just to make sure it's going to look good, and I think that looks so super cute. So now the next thing we need to do is to create the well for our shaker pieces to move in. And so I wanted the leaves to be able to hide behind the hills a little bit, but I didn't want them to go all of the way down. So I'm kind of layering that one foam strip there kind of right behind the hills. I brought in my window just to make sure. And then from here I can build up the rest of this square here. And so I'm using our 3D foam strips and just trimming off whenever there's extra to make this square here where all of these little foam strips are going to line up perfectly so that none of the shaker pieces are going to fall out. And then we're going to peel up the liner paper and we're going to stack a whole nother foam strip on there. I like the double height because it really helps all of the shaker pieces really move, which makes it look really cool. Then I'm going to take an anti-static powder tool and I'm going to run it along the inside of the foam. This is going to help remove any excess tackiness. The powder will stick to it, and that way your pieces will really flow around in your shaker and not stick to the edges. So I really like using these anti-static powder tools. You can also use the static pouches, which are really nice too because they add a little bit of that powder to the back of your card too, and that also helps the pieces move, especially if you live in a dry and very staticky environment like I do. Now at this point I realized that I needed foam at the bottom too, because that's going to help prop up our whole window. And so I'm going to go ahead and add these little foam squares, and then again I'm going to double stack these so that it's going to be the same height as the foam strips. Now it's my favorite part of making a shaker, which is picking out which tiny treasures I'm going to add. So I have my iridescent clear sequins, I have my iridescent stars, of course I have my fall leaf confetti, and I'm also going to bring in some chunky glitter too. And I like these stars, they just add like a little bit of magic. So I'm just going to put a few of them in, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the clear sequins in. And I love adding these because they really help keep everything moving with those like thinner confetti pieces. So we're going to add some of those clear iridescent sequins. And a bunch came out, but that's okay. It's going to look good. And then now we're going to be adding the fall leaves, and I'm obsessed with these. I just think they're so gorgeous. The way the light hits them makes them change colors in such a pretty way. And there you can see I'm kind of like tapping them down towards the bottom to see what it's going to look like. And I realized like, oh, I need a lot more leaves. And with these leaves, it almost feels like the more you add, the better it is. So I'm just tapping the bottle, and you can see my helper here, Miles, is helping me add some in because I started kind of throwing them around everywhere. And then once I add all of my leaves, I like to take a little pinch of chunky glitter because it just adds a little sparkle to the background of shakers. And so Miles is going to add his little pinch of chunky glitter too. And I feel like this just makes shakers feel just a little bit more magical. So now that we've added all of our tiny treasures, we can go ahead and peel up the liner paper on all the foam squares at the bottom and also on the foam strips that have created the little frame for our shaker pieces. And then we can layer our window on top. And now this card is all done. You can see all the leaves are at the bottom, and then when you shake them, they all go up into the air. I think it looks like that little mouse is throwing leaves in the air. I just think it's so cute. You can see how sparkly and beautiful it is with all of the little tiny treasures that we added in there. And then I love how the leaves mostly hide behind the hill, and then when you shake it, they pop up into the sky. This is so much fun. I feel like this would make just anybody smile. They would take it out on the envelope and just be like wowed with how pretty it is. And it was so much fun to create. And then here I wanted to share this card by my son Miles that he made using the Lift the Flap tree backdrop. And as you open it up, look at the surprise of the cute little fall mice. I also love how he stenciled that fall leaf stencil onto the trees. I think it just turned out so cute. And thank you so much, Miles, for making this awesome card. Next up, Shari is going to wow you with a rainbowy acorn card. So take it away,
So
Shari.
this card uses the new outside in stitched acorn, and we are going to make a cute little smiling acorn. I'm also going to use the leaf and acorn border dies to make some really pretty rainbow leaves for the top and bottom of my card. So I've started by cutting out the outside in stitched acorn from craft cardstock. The cap for the acorn is cut from paper bag cardstock. I also have some black, which is going to fill in the face. That's that kind of ovally shaped piece there. I need to cut his face. And then he also comes with a leaf. So I've cut that from raspberry cardstock for a fun pinky red color. So I'm just layering the cap on there for placement so I make sure my smile is not too high. And there are a couple smiles you can pick from. I like this one with the open mouth. I just think he looks super happy. So I've run that through my die cut machine to cut my face. And then I will just layer that black piece of cardstock that I die cut onto the back, and that's going to fill in the eyes and the mouth. Now I want some shading on this, so I am using some dough ink to just dust the edges of my acorn. It's going to make that stitching really show, which I think is fun. Of course, I did not do the top because the top is where the cap goes, and for this one I'm using some walnut ink to dust the top of the cap, and you can see how it catches in those die cut details and really makes them show up. I also thought it would be fun to give this some more texture, so I'm splattering the top of the acorn with some white splatter paint. I will just let that dry off to the side. Now I want to make this pop up just a little bit, but not as much as some foam squares. So I am layering 2 scraps of cardstock on the back of the acorn cap. And then I'm going to glue this to the top of my acorn. So I just have the slightest thickness of dimension between the acorn and the cap on top. And of course, we have our little stem we need to add up here. I cut this from some ground coffee cardstock, so it's a nice dark brown. And then our little leaf. And I'm going to add the leaf with some foam so it's popped up. This is thin foam, so it's not quite as thick as regular foam squares, but I want it to be thin because I am going to pop up my entire acorn on my card. And of course, there are also some little cheeks. We can't have a cute little die cut without some cute little cheeks, and I used blush cardstock for these cute little cheeks on my acorn. Now to give him even more personality, I'm just adding a dot of white to each eye, which really makes him look like they shine, a little white to his mouth, and some cute little freckles above those rosy cheeks. And I just think this made him look so happy and cute. I just think he's adorable. So now to work on my rainbow leaves. I've cut the base from some craft cardstock, but I am going to layer leaves on every one of these. And I'm making a portrait style card, so I only need 6 leaves across there. So of course I've cut a rainbow of leaves. I have guava, cantaloupe, sunflower, cilantro for my green, peacock for my bluish teal, and sugar plum for the purple. And this will go all the way across my 4¼ inches. Now for the one on the bottom, I actually flipped it going the other direction so I can use the leaves that go the other direction. So I'm going to start with the purple on this one and flip those colors going in the opposite direction. And that way when they're on my card, they're opposite each other as well versus being lined up from the top to the bottom. For my backdrop today, I did something a little different for me. I did some watercoloring. So I wanted a very watercolor gingham sort of hand painted look to this card. And I liked the soft colors as well. So I started with speckled eggshell cardstock. And then I'm using speckled egg distress oxide. You can see I kind of smushed it on my glass mat. I added some water. I'm stirring it around to get it soupy and wet. And I'm going to start in the middle with a paintbrush, and we're just going to do horizontal lines. Now, this is not watercolor paper or watercolor cardstock, so it is going to kind of soak in, but I liked the look of this when it was finished. I like the imperfectness of those stripes. You can see they're not really even completely. It's definitely got that hand-drawn look. So once I have the horizontal ones looking the way I want, what I did was I dried them. So I'm going to grab my heat tool and just go over this until those lines are dry. Then I'm going to turn it and we're going to make our vertical lines. And you can see when it crosses over those lines that are already dry, we're going to get that darker color because we have 2 layers of this Distress Oxide ink. And the reason I use Distress Oxide because it has that pigment property and it sits on top of the paper a bit. And it gives us that really soft look. But now look at this gingham that's just coming to life. It looks like a picnic blanket. Then I'm going to dry those vertical lines. And the nice thing about this too is you could pick whichever ink you wanted to do this with, and you could make your own custom colored background. I liked this kind of soft blue that wasn't too bright, so it didn't distract from my brightly colored leaves and my acorn. Once this is all dry, I am trimming this out with the largest of the outside in stitch rectangles. Then I've grabbed a gray pen. You can use any color pen you want. I just happen to have a bunch of these colors of these little fine tip pens. And the gray kind of goes with that softer look for the background. And I'm just doing some hand-drawn stitching lines right down the center of each of those watercolor lines that I created. And this really gives it a hand-drawn look, and I just love it so much. I kind of want to do this on all my cards for a while because it was so fun. So I've done all the vertical ones, then I'm going to go back through and do the horizontal ones as well. I've seen fabrics that are designed in this sort of hand-stitched gingham look, and that was the inspiration for making my own for this card. So now my background is all finished, but I also need a sentiment for this card, and I want to keep it simple because that acorn is going to take up a lot of space. So I've cut a sentiment banner from raspberry cardstock, and I just found a short sentiment that says "Hello Friend" from the Let's Go Nuts stamp set. So I will be stamping this to one side so that I can use the same sentiment banner die to trim off the right side and make a short little sentiment banner. So I will just grab that same die and you can feel it line up at the top and the bottom right against those cut lines, and we'll just hold it in place. We'll trim off that right side and end up with a short little sentiment banner that's going to fit on our card beside our big acorn just perfectly. Now I wanted the border around my plaid background to be soft as well instead of bright, bright white. So I'm covering my card base with craft cardstock. So that's the border we're going to see. And then I am putting my watercolor gingham panel right on top. So now we have that craft border around that speckled eggshell panel with our soft blues. Then I'm bringing in my rainbow leaves that I did earlier, making sure I've got them in the direction I want them to be. I am remaking a card, so I was looking at a picture to make sure they're the same. And I will just add some liquid glue on the back of those leaves and pop them at the top and the bottom of this card. Once I get both of those top and bottom borders on here, I can take my scissors and trim off the part that overhangs the edge. And I just think these leaves are so much fun. Then for my acorn, I've put some foam squares all over the back, and I'm going to put him in here kind of tilted to the side because I think that's cute. Like he landed on the ground, and of course he can't stand up straight because he's got a point there. And then our banner's just going to fit over here to the right, just overlapping him just a little bit. For some shimmer, I am using some gold gems, some gold sequins, or some die cut gold sparkle embellishments would be great here as well. I'm just picking them up and adding them with a little bit of liquid glue. And then finally, I'm giving a little bow detail to the top of my acorn. I just thought this was a fun way to add some texture. And this coral twine matches all these colors really well. So I will just put this right at the top, hold that in place with my reverse tweezers while that glue dries, and trim off the ends. And then here is that finished card. I love that cute acorn so much. The rainbow leaves are so pretty and I love the background. So for my card, I'm going to start out with the leaf and acorn border die. And you can see I've cut a couple out of some yellow cardstock. That's going to be for my yellow leaves. I've also taken the little individual leaf die, which cuts 2 leaves, one in each direction, and I've cut out a couple other colors. I've also cut out 2 of the little acorns from paper bag cardstock and the acorn caps from chocolate bar cardstock that I will layer together to create my little acorns to hang off of my border. I also have the Scripty Thanks cut from sparkle cardstock and the new Scripty Thanks outline to layer behind it. And for my background, I'm using the stitched ripple backdrop with some mist cardstock. So here are all my leaves. I'm just kind of sorting them by the direction the leaf kind of curves and the colors. So you can see I have 2 kinds of leaves in a lot of different colors. And my border is yellow, and I'm just going to leave some of these without a leaf layered on top, and that will give me some yellow leaves. So I'm laying them out sort of where I want them on my card, and I'm going to add some liquid glue to a couple of them, skipping some so that I can still have some yellow leaves. And I'm just going to drop them right on top. We're going to skip that one, keep it yellow. We're going to add a red here and another orange. And that's going to take care of that border. Now this next one, I have it coming from the other direction, but I don't want it as long. But I do want those leaves to kind of nest in that same zigzag pattern. So I just trimmed off that last leaf to get it to the length that I wanted, and those leaves kind of nesting the way I wanted them to be. And just like on the top one, I'm going to add some liquid glue to a couple of the leaves and drop some colors in there, again skipping some so that I have some yellow leaves as well. You could layer another yellow leaf on top if you wanted, but I'm just using my base piece for the color of the yellow leaves. And then I have a little strip. This is going to go towards the bottom. It's a little bit shorter, and I will do the exact same thing there and add a couple leaves to this one too. And I do have a couple leaves left over. I am going to be using one of those on my card, just kind of floating around by itself. So I'm trimming off a little bit there, but I will trim it off more once I get it onto my card base, once I have a hard edge to trim it on. I also need to add the little caps to my acorns, so I'm just putting a little bit of liquid glue right where the cap goes. And I will just drop all of those acorn caps into place. And then the final thing I need to assemble is my Scripty Thanks. So I cut the Scripty Thanks from some brown sparkle cardstock. I'm just going to add that liquid glue all over the back. The outline, which is new, I cut from some speckled eggshell. So it's kind of a creamy color, and it puts the indentation lines or the etched lines to show you exactly where to line up that Scripty Thanks so you get a perfect outline for your sentiment. So now I'm ready to assemble all my pieces onto my card, and I will start by adding my background piece to a card base. Then I'm going to come in here and start to lay out my leaves where I want them to go. And you see they overhang the sides, and that's where I will trim them off at the edges of my card. And I will just use my liquid glue to add to the back of all these leaves and put them right back into place on my card. I am going to make sure I have them all glued down before I start trimming things off. And of course we have this little short one at the bottom. Then I can grab my scissors and trim off those excess leaves that are hanging off the sides. I do think this is a really fun way to use border dies, especially when they have a nice finished edge like these fun leaves. Now I want to add my acorns, and I have 4. I have 2 sets of 2, and I'm going to tuck this one under that leaf And then I will tuck this one underneath the other acorn so I look like I have a bunch of 4. Now I've pulled out my thanks stamp set, and I want to stamp the word mini above my Scripty Thanks. So I'm just holding it here for placement. I've got that word mini, and it fits right in there between that H and K, which is just perfect. And then I will put some foam all over the back of that Scripty Thanks so I can pop it up. And the new outlines really make popping up these Scripty sentiments so easy. I love them so much. Of course, here's one of my leaves that were left by themselves, and I want to tuck this on the other side of my word thanks. And then to kind of fill it in with some embellishments, for this one I cut the round sequins from the sequin mix die out of a gold sparkle cardstock, and I just think these add the perfect touch of fall sparkle. So I have just sprinkled these around in the 3 different sizes, and I'm just going through and picking them up with my pick up pokey tool and adding them with some liquid glue. Now, you can't have too much sparkle, so I am adding some Stardust stickles to all my leaves because I want them to shine too. And I'm just sort of tracing the lines on the leaves. I'm not completely covering them, so I'm tracing that spine down the middle and those veins coming out just to add some touches of glitter to each of them. And then this card is all finished. I love those fall colors on that mist background. I just think it's so pretty, and I love these new fall leaf borders for a simple thank you card.
Oh my goodness, Shari, this card is so gorgeous. It makes me so excited for fall. And then this rainbow acorn, oh my goodness, it just makes me smile. And now I am going to be creating an acorn shaker inspired by a card by Callie. And here I have a piece of white cardstock that's 5.5 by 4.25. And I have my fall leaf background stencil, which is one of my favorite stencils. And she used some colors that really surprised me together. She started with lobster, which is this really great bright red. I'm tapping off some of the excess, and then I'm using a really light hand to get this kind of like pinky red color that looks really pretty. And so I'm going to go over the whole stencil again, tapping my brush off just a little bit to just tap off some of the color. Then I'm going to bring in sunflower ink, but I'm going to make sure to overlap the sunflower ink with the lobster ink, and that's going to create my orange. And then I'm going to bring jalapeno ink in, again tapping off some of the excess to make it not too dark. And then again, I'm going to overlap the jalapeno with the yellow to create this yellowy green color, and then I'm going to build up the green towards the bottom. Peel up the stencil, and isn't that so pretty? Now this is a 2-step stencil. This next one's going to fill in the rest of the design. So we're going to line that up, and it lines up really easy because it's just going to fill in all those open areas, and we're going to repeat the same thing. Lobster ink, tap off some of the excess, and then just work our way down the stencil. And then about 1/3 of the way down or so. And then we're going to take our sunflower ink and we're going to make sure to overlap these two so that we get that really gorgeous orange color. And then we're going to take our jalapeno ink and do the same thing. We're going to stop at the bottom, and then we're going to make sure it overlaps into some of that yellow. I'm going to make sure the ink is a little bit darker down towards the bottom, just so that there's kind of a gradient that goes into that yellowy green mix. And then here you can see, oh my gosh, it's just so pretty. Oh, I love it. And now what we're going to do is take the same brushes and just go over top of this area. So again, my lobster, I'm going to tap off the excess and very lightly just go over the top. And then we're going to go in the middle area where we had put sunflower onto our stencil, and we're going to repeat the same thing, making sure again that the lobster and the sunflower overlap to make my orange. And then you'll see I'll go back and forth between the two colors. And then the same thing with the jalapeno ink. We're going to do the bottom, and then we're going to make sure it overlaps some with the yellow. And doesn't that look so pretty? I loved making this. I want to make like 20 more of these backgrounds. I just think they're so much fun. Now here I have my acorn pieces. I have the base from the outside in stitched acorn, and then I have the frame from the stitched acorn frame. And what we're going to do is we're going to ink these up with a little bit of dough ink. So it's craft cardstock, and we're just going to add a little bit of inking. I'm going to go heavier with my dough ink on this base piece because it's going to layer behind the frame, and I really wanted there to be a difference in the color, but I also wanted to add a little bit of inking to the top of the frame and then also to the base as well. And so I just think this looks so cute. Next, we're going to add some liquid glue to the back of the frame so that we can add the backer piece to it so that that layers in the detail of the top of the acorn. And I'm going to layer foam strips around the acorn to create the well for the shaker. Another way to do this would be to die cut a bunch of those frames and stack them up on top of each other, but I decided to use foam strips and just curve them around the shape of the acorn, but both ways would work really, really great. Now, if you wanted to create a shaker without the space, you could of course layer the foam strips onto the back of the frame and just attach it directly onto your card base. I like using the outside in base because it just makes it a little bit easier to create this whole shaker well. So now that I've added my foam strips, we're going to be double stacking our foam strips again because that is the secret to getting these shakers to move really well. So we'll peel up the liner paper and then just add a whole nother foam strip to make them taller. Then I'm going to take my anti-static powder tool and I'm just going to rub that along the inside edge of the foam strips just to remove any of the excess stickiness. That's going to help my pieces move around really, really well in this little acorn shaker, which is so cute. And then now I'm going to take out my iridescent sequins and also my fall leaf confetti mix. And then we're going to add some iridescent sequins that are going to help the little fall leaves move around. And then we're going to add a bunch of fall leaves into this. Then I'm going to take some nice strong double-sided tape and I'm going to layer that behind the stitched acorn frame. And then we're going to die cut some acetate with the outside in stitched acorn, which is going to give us that same shape as the frame, but it's going to fill in the whole thing. So we can go ahead and peel up the liner paper on the back of the frame, and then we can just layer that acetate little acorn on the back to create our window. Then we can go ahead and peel up the liner paper on all of the foam strips that we added onto the shaker base, and then we can layer the stitched acorn frame on top. And this just makes me smile. It's just so cute. It's a little acorn shaker. It's just adorable. I think it's so much fun. And then once we have that layered, now we can shake it and you can see, look at that. Ah, so cute. Now next I'm going to take the little stem for the acorn and we're going to layer that into the top, and then we're going to work on some other things to decorate this card, and we're going to be using that leaf and acorn border here, and I've gone ahead and die cut that out of cilantro cardstock, and then I'm using that jalapeno ink and a little tiny blender brush, and I'm just adding a little bit of inking to each of the leaves just to make them feel special and also so that they match the inking that we did for the background with our stenciling. Then I went ahead and cut some acorns out of craft cardstock and then paper bag cardstock, and we're going to layer the little toppers for the acorns, or the little acorn hats as I call them, on top of each one of those. And then we're going to bring back that stencil background and we're going to start layering these on. So we're going to layer this leaf border right at the top, and then we can go ahead and start trimming off any of the excess on either side of this piece. And then we'll layer in all of the acorns, and then I die cut some of those extra leaves. We're going to add some foam squares behind each one of those and then layer them on top to give some extra dimension and fill in that leafy border a bit. Now here we have that Scripty Thanks and the Scripty Thanks outline, and we're going to die cut the outline out of vellum and then the Scripty Thanks out of some gold metallic cardstock, and I think this is such a pretty combo that Callie did. And so we're going to add some liquid glue to the back of that Scripty Thanks and then layer that metallic thanks on to the vellum, and I think that just feels so special and so cool. Then we can go ahead and bring our shaker acorn in, and we're going to be layering that onto the card, but I wanted to pop up the word thanks so that it can partially layer over the acorn, but those thanks letters are a little bit thin, so I'm just going to take my scissors and trim my foam strips in half, and that makes it the perfect width to layer behind the letters. And so I'm just going to add behind a couple of the letters some of those foam strips. We're going to add some tape runner to our acorn, and of course add in the little leaf of the acorn there for a pop of color, and then the thanks is going to layer a little bit over the acorn and then a little bit onto the card, and then those foam strips will help it pop up over all of that. And then here we have a standard size card base. It's going to be 5.5 by 4.25, and so we can layer this whole thing on top, and now this card is all done. It's so super cute. I love the little fall leaves in the shaker. I think it's just so much fun with the sequins and those sparkly leaves. I think it just looks so pretty, and it's so much fun to shake, and I loved creating the fall leaf background too. Like, this just makes me ready for fall. It's just so much fun. And here I wanted to show you the card by Callie that inspired me to make mine, and I like how she added the smiley face onto the shaker window and she used little beads inside instead. So I just think it's so cute and so pretty, and I just had such a blast making it. And next up we have some incredible cards by the design team, and this one by June is a ta-da diorama with fall mice, and as you open it up there's a stack of pumpkins inside. Isn't this so cute? I just love those little mice so much. And then next up, we have a gorgeous card by Grace. It is an acorn shaker using the most beautiful color combo. I can't wait to try this. I think this is so gorgeous for fall, and I love how she added the smiley face on top of the shaker. This card here by Megan is so fun, and she added our Simply Celebrate squirrels at the bottom and then the cute little acorn at the top, and I love the give thanks sentiment. This card by Audrey is so much fun, and that leafy border is a perfect match for our fun Happy Harvest stamp set. This card by Elise is so cute, and I love her smiley acorn and all of the leaves that she added around him. This card here is so much fun, and I love how you could stamp the smiley faces into the acorns. They are just adorable. And then I think this idea by Karen is so cute. She used that outside in acorn and layered a photo behind it. Oh, I just love it. I can't wait to try it too. Here I love how Tammy used the acorn to help set the scene. It's layered in the background of her super cute mice in the fall leaves. And then here is that card by Callie that inspired me to make mine, and I love how she layered the smiley face on top of the shaker and used the leaf and acorn border with the acorn. And then Shari's fall mice are so cute with Happy Harvest and that fun scarecrow. This card by Lynette is adorable, and I love how she layered the one with the frame and the one without on the same card. It's just so fun. I love the bold red on Melissa's card. It's so pretty with all of those cute fall leaves and acorns around. And then here, I love how Jennifer added the acorn onto the platform pop-up. It is such a good match for it, and I think it looks absolutely adorable on this card. Shari's acorn shaker is so cute, and I love the blue behind it. The blue and the brown and the red together are so pretty. And then this Ta-Da diorama by Jennifer is so cute. The leaves around the heart are so sweet, and as you open it up, you get the fun fall mice on the inside, and oh my goodness, I just love this. And then next up, I love these fun colors that Letitia used on her card. I think it's so adorable for fall. So we cannot wait to see all of your acorn cards and your leaf cards and your fall mice cards, so make sure to share them with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!